Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our very first program in the state of California. And what does that make us now? We are coast to coast. We are now coast to coast. MS Views and News will be known as this. We are part of the MS Coalition these days, and we can now tell everybody and show them our seal that we are coast to coast. We do programs up and down the eastern seaboard, in the central portion of the United States, and in the Midwest, and now we've gotten to California. Tomorrow morning, my team and I are leaving for Albuquerque, because on Saturday, we're doing a program in Albuquerque, and then have to get back and start all over again and doing programs in Florida. So, again, we are now coast to coast. We're glad that we were asked to come to California, and we hope to be able to come back again in the near future. So thank you. Now, thanking other people, I want to thank the people that gave us the funding to do tonight's program, and that would be Biogen IDEC, and I hope you all appreciate them doing this as well. Please thank them. Also, Teva Neuroscience and Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals, and it's, like I said before, they want us to be able to provide programs for you. They are not just doing it to take care of their drugs or for that you should know about their medications, but they actually like when organizations, patient advocacy organizations, such as MS Views and News, can provide these kinds of programs. And so we will continue this, and there are other companies out there too, or other organizations out there as well that will continue doing this. So tonight, as with many of our programs, we have 3 speakers. Sometimes we have 5 speakers if it's a Saturday afternoon. Sometimes it's a 6-hour program. Nobody complains when we tell them we're not having a break, because if you need it that bad, well, then you could just get up and go. You know what it would be like to empty a room of 100 people and get them all back in again? Forget about it. You want to stretch, just go in the back of the room and stretch, and that's the same for tonight, too. We have 3 speakers tonight. Dr. Berkovich was going to be speaking first, and where is she right now? Exactly. I'm sure you could all tell me she's in traffic. All right? So tonight, after we have the self-help group leaders that I asked to speak for 90 seconds each, and they're lined up here, first we're going to have Lisa Gonzalez Goetz, who's a disability attorney, a Social Security disability attorney out of Florida. And Lisa does a lot of our programs out of state. Why? Because we want to educate everybody. And she's a national speaker in that capacity. And she could speak to you and answer any questions that any of you have about Social Security, all right, and or disability. All right, then we're going to have Dr. Berkovich speak. By the way, each one, after they get done with their presentations, we're going to do a Q&A. Then Dr. Berkovich will speak for about an hour, and then she'll do a Q&A. And then we have a special person with multiple sclerosis who learned how to battle his own MS in his own way. And he's going to show you guys how it could probably help you too. But that will be David Lyons. And David Lyons came up from San Diego. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. But first, I'm going to go down in order here, all right? Michael, can you swing around a little bit so we can see you?
All right, here's what I want to tell you. If you're not going to a support group, you're missing out. What's the purpose of a support group? To offer you support while you're living with MS, to teach you how to live better with this disease. I have flyers out front for our support group, and of course I believe it's the best support group on earth. But we have people in our support group who've been living with MS, newly diagnosed, or living with it for over 40 years. Learn how to live better with this disease. It can be managed. It can be a positive experience. How much time do I have left?
10 seconds.
10 seconds. So get to a support group. Get thee to a nunnery. Get to a support group. It's the best thing you could do for yourself while living with MS.
650, all right? Thank you. Can you come on up here, please? You're going to have to get as close to this camera as possible, all right? Okay. Without stepping on that little one.
Okay. My name is Katrina Williams, and I co-lead the Riverside Support Group, and I lead the Apple Valley Support Group. And I've had multiple sclerosis since I was 17 years old. So I'm 47 now, and my motto is life is truly great. I love to live life. I've been what they call down twice, where I was bedridden for over 6 months. So to even be able to walk and participate and do what I need to do, I thoroughly enjoy it. This is what I like. And this is my co-leader, Antoinette, for the Apple Valley Support Group.
Okay. Katrina, can you step out?
Yes, I am.
Hello, everyone. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2009. I met Katrina through the MS Society online. I just was looking for support, trying to figure out where I was to go, what was I supposed to start with all these pamphlets I had about multiple sclerosis and medications. And it just so happened her name was on the list. I called her, and 6 years later, we're still trekking it together. She's up, I'm down, I'm up, she's down. We do find support in each other, and in our support group, it's actually really special. There's about 13 of us in Apple Valley. Now, we're still growing, but we have a lot of fun and a lot of conversation, and we get a lot done. Like, you know, when someone has information about control of different things and that's going on in their systems during that week or whatever, then somebody will suggest, oh, this worked for me, or this worked for me. And so anyway, come on out if you can. Apple Valley, again, our support group is the best in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have apples in Apple Valley? Can you come on up? I know you don't want to stand that long.
Good exercise.
Great.
My name is Brenda Lane. I run a support group in Hawthorne, California. We meet every fourth Saturday of the month. And we have a nice group. It's about anywhere from 15 to 20 of us in the group. If anybody would like to join, just see me. And you're more than welcome to come and join us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to step back a little bit so we don't have this thing in the way.
Good evening. I'm Shannon Triplett with the Force of Downey, California, located at Rancho Los Amigos. We are a support health group. We are also a group of all ages, all ethnicities, all mobilities. We cover all age groups, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70. It's a good group where we have both men and women. A lot of people don't realize that there are a lot of men with multiple sclerosis. And this is a group that we have a good balance with that. We work out our cognitive skills. We do physical fitness with a physical fitness therapist. We also work with a psychotherapist. We also get to talk with each other and do activities. So it's a great group. So anyone looking for a group in the area, we meet every Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Your turn.
Thank you. My name is Michael Jack, and I appreciate the invitation from Stuart to talk briefly today. I'm here both as a volunteer ambassador to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society and as co-leader of the Santa Barbara MS Self-Help Group. My daughter has had MS for over a decade, so I know firsthand the severe impact this disease can have on a person's life. It is still the #1 disease disabling young adults. March is the 70th anniversary of the National MS Society. I don't know if you know that. It was founded by Sylvia Laurie, a young law student whose brother contracted MS. The vision of the society then as now is a world free from MS. To achieve this, the society has a dual thrust. One has provided nearly $1 billion to accelerate the pace of scientific research, playing a role in the development over the last decade of over 12 disease-modifying medications, enormous progress, and many of the things you see here. But more work remains to be done to stop MS completely. The Society has a second thrust, home office and chapters in 50 states, which provide programs and services which have assisted over 1 million people. The Santa Barbara Self-Help Group, which I represent, meets every second Wednesday of the month at Cody's Cafe in Santa Barbara, 1230, and parallels the goals of the Society. Meetings are inclusive, safe, and friendly, an environment to distribute information on MS throughout. Outside speakers share personal information on MS among the members of the group that helps and what doesn't. Also to have fun activities such as Walk MS, Bike MS, and Muckfest MS. Mud. These, in addition to having fun, provide funds to support continuing MS research and services. So for those MS individuals or MS caregivers, I cordially invite you to attend these meetings second Wednesday, 12:30 at Cody's Cafe in Santa Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You keep the paper, I get the microphone. Thank you. Mr. Thurman, come on.
Hi, my name is Ken Thurman. I belong to 3 different MS support groups. I co-facilitate all of them. co-facilitate. I have another co-facilitator in Simi Valley. Tina and Gladstone is my other co-facilitator, and Dennis Zurcher is the facilitator and of that group. Tina also facilitates she's the leader of the Thousand Oaks Support Group, which I co-facilitate, and I co-facilitate another group in Santa Clarita. I have set up Facebook pages for each of those groups, and we all do the Walk MS events at the Rose Bowl and Conejo Valley also, and I guess that's about it.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. One last person. By the way, we do this every time we go to a new venue anywhere in the United States. We like to ask the self-help group leaders to come on up because there are some people at every location we do something that have never been to a group meeting, and so we feel it's very, very important that they know what is happening in their towns.
My name is Ann Freeman, and I've been running a support group since 1972. And my husband and I, thank you. My mother was diagnosed when I was about 9. Well, she wasn't diagnosed, but she came down with symptoms when I was 9 years old. And it took several years before she was diagnosed. And meanwhile, I told her, when I'm in charge of the world, I'm going to have a gathering of MS people, and we're just going to have fun. And so that's the object. We know each other. We see each other at different events. We are so thankful for all the research that's being done on behalf of MS. And my husband and I were married in 1983. I told him one of the terms of the agreement would be that he'd have to help me with MS. So he is my co-leader, my support, and my chief cook and bottle washer. And I can't tell you how thankful I am for him. But just again, the thankfulness that we have for everything that is being done in our behalf, in behalf of MS, and gatherings like this. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, all this talk about the MS Society and other organizations, just remember, please, this is an MS Views and News program. We're also known as MSVN, and once upon a time it was Stu's Views and MS News. Linda knows that, and others know that in the room, so I want to thank you all. So let's get this program started because it is getting late. They are going to be bringing out food in a moment as well, and I'm going to ask Lisa Gonzalez Goetz to come on up and so we can get started. Thank you. Don't forget we're doing a raffle later. I know you're all here for that, right?
Yes. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you. See, the
Okay.
mic is okay. Lower?
Yeah. Everybody can hear me okay? Yes. Okay. Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me here. My name is Lisa Gonzalez Goetz. I'm an attorney that specializes in Social Security disability law. I work with my husband. We have a staff of about 12 people, and we work nationwide. We are headquartered in Fort Lauderdale. Excuse me. Okay, so what do? I represent individuals that go before judges or the Social Security Administration that are applying for disability because they're not able to work. What type of individuals come to me? Not only MS, anybody with heart conditions, lupus, cancer, mental conditions, accidents, which prevent from working for 12 months or more, which is the definition of disability. And I'll go through that on my presentation. But I felt it was important tonight to bring up the fact that many people do not go to attorneys. And the number one reason that seems to be is people are concerned about the cost about going to an attorney. And I'll explain everything in my presentation, but I will want to start off by letting you know that nationwide, any attorney that takes a case before the Social Security Administration, they have to be statutorily approved by the administration, and they should only get paid if they win the case. So that should not stop you or anybody that you know from going forward with your case. Then I wrote some other reasons why people do not go to attorneys. Many people don't know that they should. So they go through the process, and then it gets a little later and it gets hairier because everything you've told the administration is recorded and then used not necessarily in your favor. Many people don't think they need an attorney, but in life, whenever you're told you have a right to an attorney, it's been my experience that you should take that right, because they have a right to take something away from you. So that's in a car accident, that's in buying property, and certainly with Social Security disability. Some people are too busy to get attorneys. Some people think attorneys are too expensive, but we all collect the same amount of money, and we're capped at $6,000 if you win a case. And then the one that I like and I hear the most, and I really don't like it, I'm being sarcastic, is that they have a relative who's an attorney or a neighbor. And like with anything, you want to go to somebody who is specializing in it, who knows the practice and knows the judges and knows the area. So with that, I'd like to ask by a show of hands, how many people are currently receiving Social Security disability benefits? Okay, so most of you. How many people are currently applying for benefits? Okay, so right now I'm going to gear more the conversation as to anybody who's receiving benefits. And I will tell you that the government is actively reviewing more cases now than ever before. And it has to do with the economy, and it certainly has to do with an election year. So if you're on benefits for a year or you're on benefits for the last 15 years, my advice would be to make sure that you continue getting treatment, you continue your patient relationship with your doctor, so that when you need completion of any paperwork, you will have that available and accessible to you. Okay? So basically, there are two types of disability programs. There's SSI, and there's Title, which is Title 16, and there's Title II. Okay, sorry. There's Title II. Oh, much louder, better. Title II is when you've worked and you've paid money into the system, and you're entitled to receive your retirement, your early retirement, what you would receive at the age of 65 at any age if you can prove disability. SSI is for a person who either didn't work enough quarters of coverage, or for children, for example. And those fall under Title 16. That's based on welfare, and your income is as important. You have to qualify financially as well as medically under the SSI program. So disability is a very interesting line of law for me, because every case is different. Every exacerbation of an impairment, every manifestation of a complaint is very individualized. So every case is very specific to the individual. Social Security disability has a one-line definition of disability. Whether or not you meet it can tack on a lot of other interpretations of this. But basically, it's an inability to work 12 months or more because of an impairment. The impairment can be a mental impairment, a physical impairment, or a combination of both. Okay? So past relevant work is a very case-specific work. So if you are applying for benefits, they're going to be looking to the last 15 years of any work that you did. If you are not able to perform the work that you did before, then the question becomes, are you able to do any other kind of work? And that is an interpretation for vocational experts. Whether or not your incapacity is expected to result in death, that also is taken into account. But many, many times, and even with stage 4 cancer, or advanced illnesses, you will see that they say, well, we determined that you are disabled, but we don't determine that it's going to last 12 months, or we don't think that it will result in death. So that's one of the ways that your cases get denied daily, frequently. Preparation is the most important part in a case. So when we represent clients before the administrative law judges or the federal judges, it's often by really reviewing the medical records, talking to the client, writing briefs, preparing how this particular individual is affected by their impairment. So many times I have clients come to me and say, I'm disabled, I have MS. That doesn't per se disable you. It's how the MS is affecting you, how it limits you, how it exacerbates, how it makes you feel, how much interference it has on your ability to sustain your activities of daily living. And so all those can be or should be found in your medical records. Most recently, every medical record is pretty much now electronically. So boxes are checked, and they're not as detailed as they would have been when they were written by hand. So it's very important that when you go to a doctor, you really complain about these things so that they can at least be checked. If you're having difficulty remembering to take your medication, if you have side effects from your medication, if you feel lethargic, if you take naps, if you have to rest, if you have difficulty walking or lifting a pot to cook and put water in it, all those things are very subject to interpretation and very case specific. Your doctor really, unless you have an amazing doctor that really focuses on MS, they're not going to take the time to write all these things in the record. So you have to tell them to do it, because that becomes the most important thing for your case. If you are receiving benefits, it's as important to complain. So please don't believe that because you're on benefits right now and you've been receiving them for a year, for 3 years, for 15 years, that you are not subject to review. I had an individual who was 58 years old who was reviewed for benefits. I have a person whose case I won 9 months ago, and they're being called for review. And reviews have their own little their nuances, so I do want to touch on that. When you get reviewed by the administration, you're going to receive a letter saying they want an update of your doctors and your treatments and how are you feeling. And you complete that and you send it, and they'll request the records. Social Security will request the records from your medical doctors. More often than not, that's all you need. But if they turn around and say that they are going to stop your benefits, okay, you have only 10 days to appeal it so that your monthly benefits continue. After 10 days, they will cut your benefits and suspend your monies. Okay? You have 60 days to appeal a decision that you're no longer disabled, but 10 days to remain on the books. Okay? So it's very hard to remember 10 days when you don't have so many good days and when your memory gets affected by the cognitive impairments that one has. 10 days goes by really, really quickly, but you cannot ignore it. On the one hand, if you appeal it and you tell them that you want to continue your benefits in those 10 days and you're appealing it, if you are not found to be disabled, you owe back that money to the federal government. If you choose to not appeal it within 10 days and they start withholding your money and you lose your case, you don't have an overpayment. If you win your case, that money comes back retroactively, like the first time that you had the case. So it's a very double-edged sword when you get reviewed. And it's important to remember you have 60 days to appeal, but you certainly only have 10 days. And that's all across the nation, internationally, Guam, Europe, any individual who's receiving benefits for Social Security. You have 10 days to go back and say, I am still disabled, and get all the paperwork in. But if you ever know somebody who is receiving benefits and is not getting treatment, and you feel that they are doing much better and there's a medical improvement, then you have to really advise them or let them get the advice of an attorney, not play one that maybe they don't want to appeal within the 10 days, because if you don't win that case, you're going to be charged with an overpayment. So those are, I may have that on the presentation, but preparation is the most important thing. If you ever or anybody needs an attorney that does Social Security disability, please ask what percentage of your practice does Social Security disability. Okay? You don't want somebody who does not specialize in it. You want somebody who knows the judges, knows the system, knows the paperwork, knows how it works, okay? Because attorneys are specialized right now. Not true 30 years ago, not true when I started 23 years ago, but right now people are very specialized. So you want to make sure you're not going to an attorney that handles workers' comp for a Social Security disability case, or a person who handles estate planning. Very specialized. Okay, I'm going backwards. I was going a little too fast. Okay, right now, every file in Social Security, with the exception of maybe 5-7% of the cases, are electronically prepared. All your medical records go electronically. Your file is electronic. This is one of the examples of what it looks like when you go on the system and you go into the server. It shows you and how it's broken down: jurisdictional, where you live, the Social Security offices who've examined you, the disability report development. Part of this also is their communications with you. Hi, good morning. Can I speak to Mrs. Smith? This is Social Security. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm good. Oh, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm just making breakfast. All that gets recorded. Everything gets written down, and this is put as an exhibit in your file. And this is something that the judges or the attorneys or anybody who wants to pay your case or deny your case can look into, and can look and review and say, you know, on this day, you were doing okay. So I don't know why you're saying you're not doing okay based on this conversation. So be very, very careful when they're calling you. Everything gets recorded. Everything is kept. Everything is kept for years and years. And those paper files are also kept. And they're being uploaded. So right now in an election year, there are more reviews than ever. There's more of a standstill than ever on Social Security cases. There's more denials than ever before. There's swings and it goes up and down. There's more appeals than ever. And those are going into the federal district court. Cases tend to take 8 months to 16 months after you've stopped working. But there are times and there are cases that take 3 or 4 years, and we have some cases that are 5 years in federal district court tied in, okay? This is for Title II cases and people who have worked and paid money into the system. This is an example of how they compute your quarters of coverage and the monies that you've paid into the system. It also computes any attempts that you've had at work that were unsuccessful, any part-time work. It breaks it down per quarters of coverage. It breaks it down per work that you did, and based on this printout, which looks a little like mumble jumble, the judges and us, we can interpret exactly whether the work that you did was part-time, whether it was successful work, whether it was a trial work period, okay, whether you are insured for benefits or not. So many times people that are in very supportive environments, financially sound environments, they don't want to apply for disability. They got a diagnosis of MS, but they're not sick, they're not working, or they haven't worked. These quarters expire. Rule of thumb is 5 out of the last 10 years. If you've worked 5 out of the last 10 years, you should be able to qualify for Title II. If you have not worked 5 out of the last 10 years, you may have difficulty qualifying for Title II under your own work record. And if you don't meet the criteria for financially destitute, indigent, based on welfare, you will not qualify for SSI. So anybody who gets diagnosed with MS, it's a long process. It takes a long time. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of answering questions. Don't wait till you're not feeling so good. If your illness is progressing, go ahead and apply before it gets too hard, because I see a lot of people waiting till they're very, very, very sick. And then they have to wait the 12 months, 16 months, 2 years to get benefits. And the situation becomes very chaotic, and I see it every single day. Okay, so MS falls under a qualification of compassionate allowance. Social Security, maybe over 10 years ago, decided that they were going to do a compassionate allowance for certain illnesses. Actually, it was more than 12 years ago. And the aim of it is, if you're very, very sick and you meet certain criteria, we're going to give you the benefits right away. Under compassionate allowance, we're not going to ask you to wait in line, okay? So there's a list of different illnesses that fall under compassionate allowances. They require very specific things: MRIs, blood counts, objective medical records, doctor records, very, very specific to the markers that show a progressive illness, okay? It is not a separate program, and it moves you to the front of the line. So there's a list of some of the compassionate allowances that are given priority under Social Security. We're talking very severe cases. I will tell you, I am really good at what I do. I only do Social Security disability. And I can tell you that in August of 2015, I had 5 people who qualified for compassionate allowance who passed away on me because they were not moved to the front of the line, okay? And I know the judges, and I know the staff, and I know the bosses in the Social Security offices, and we just couldn't get it in fast enough, okay? So compassionate allowance, in theory, works, but in reality, it's very difficult. I have a person with ALS, and arbitrarily they decided to give his benefits as of 2 months ago, but he's had ALS progressive for the last 10 months. So he's just happy he got them. I have to respect my client, but I want to say appeal it because you've had it for the last 8 months. They're cutting benefits, they're negotiating. It's not fair, but it's the situation and it's the political climate that we're in right now. This is the definition of compassionate allowance, where the medical conditions are so severe that they obviously meet Social Security criteria. So when they look, Social Security looks and says, where is it obviously met? That's subject to interpretation. So we need help from your doctors. Patient-doctor relationship is the most important thing. And like everything, if you trust your doctor, you're in great hands. And if you don't, change doctors. And I would say the same thing of an attorney. If you don't trust an attorney who's helping you, change your attorney, because there's some great people out there that can really help. The process is initial reconsideration, request for hearing, appeals counsel. If that gets denied, we go into the USDC, which is United States District Court. And if that gets denied, we go to the Supreme Court. That is where my aim is. That is where I have not gone yet. But these are administrative procedures. The judges that examine you and view your case are actually administrative employees. They're Social Security employees. They're supposed to be non-biased. They're supposed to be non-judgmental, and they're supposed to be subject to interpretation, and it depends. Some people ask me, why am I in California when my practice is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida? And by traveling nationwide, I can see the tendencies that the judges have, the offices of different levels of Social Security, and how they manage their clients, what judges are paying more, what kind of procedures they use. So Fort Lauderdale, for example, when I started practicing 23 years ago, was probably the second from the top in the nation, and right now it's the second from the bottom in the nation. So these offices ebb and flow based on the employees that they get, based on the judges, based on the political climate. Okay? And we do appeals to all these different levels. Some people think it's very easy to get disability at an initial level because they had a lot of help from their doctors, and then all of a sudden they get a review and they don't know why. And it's subject to interpretation by the employee from the disability office who's looking at your file. Okay? Okay, that's me. I went to Temple Law School, University of Florida. I'm a member of the Pennsylvania and Florida Bar, member of the NOSCR Convention, and if anybody has any questions, I will open up to Q&A. Yes.
All right, so we're going to start the Q&A, all right?
All right. My name is Ken.
Hi.
I'm from Los Angeles. Diagnosed in August of 2014.
Okay.
Multiple sclerosis. Career law enforcement guy. Former military, Army, combat veteran. My question is, actually, it's kind of two-part. Hopefully I can squeeze this in.
Okay.
My question is, what are my chances being approved with my background? And just give you a little bit more information. I was approved for SSI, but my SSD is currently going through. So, I mean, it's being processed right now. So I'm just wondering, what are my chances? I do the best that I can to stay in shape. I was almost probably using a walker last year around in August. And I decided that I wasn't going to let it beat me. So I ended up going to the gym. Going to the gym daily. I work out 2 hours a day. But with all of that, I'm just wondering, what are my chances of being approved? I still have the cognitive issues. I have some visual issues. And I still go through the ups and downs with MS daily. So my question is, what are my chances of...
Okay, ask her.
Okay.
What are my chances of being approved?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. What are my chances of being approved? I was a combat vet. Depending on the judge that sees you, I mean, we do a lot of work with veterans. I represent a lot of combat people with PTSD, with MS, with respiratory problems, with heart problems. Some are service connected, some are not. Some are getting benefits, some are disabled by 100% by the VA. Your rating of disability by the VA is important for Social Security disability, but it's not, they do not have to follow it, okay? So it doesn't mean just because you have this, I should have this, but they do help. I think your chances are good as long as your doctor is saying you need this. Oftentimes, when you have a person in Social Security looking at your records, if they see that you're working out 2 hours a day, they're going to say, "Shit, you're fine." You may not be able to do the work that you did before, but maybe vocationally you can rip a ticket in a movie theater and hand it. That's a job. Maybe you can stare at a TV screen, and if there's a problem, press the panic button or dial 911. That's a job people get paid for. So Social Security right now is investigating Facebook accounts. They are investigating internet activity that people are doing. They are looking to see how often you're going to do all these things and whether or not that can translate into work. Okay? So my suggestion would be that you're very clear with your doctor and you're very clear with what they write on the notes and what they don't write on the notes. Okay?
Thank you. Just so you all know, we have to stop the Q&A at 7:30 because Dr. Berkovich is here and she needs to get out and catch a flight tonight. So,
Okay.
whoever we don't get to in the room with this, you can see Lisa after the program. She'll be outside and you can ask her questions out there too, okay?
And you can also shoot an email at lisa@gglaw.info. Okay?
All right, next.
When my husband was applying for disability, he used a lawyer because he didn't want to have to wait and do it the second time and have to go through that stress. And it was great, and we were very happy that he did
Good.
that with the results, and it came through eventually. Would your suggestion be if there's a basic basic request for a review at some point, 10 months, 2 years, 5 years, that you do a lawyer again, or is that not as important for the review period?
So I think that it really has to do fundamentally with your doctor. You can send the reports. Be very careful how you fill out the questionnaire. My clients come back to me anytime they get anything from Social Security. Doesn't mean they get charged. It just means you get something from them. If they're reviewing you, I want to know. I want to make sure that you complete the form well. And it's so if you have that good relationship with a lawyer, I would recommend that you continue to use them. You're welcome.
Yeah, Lisa. I don't know if everybody knows, but the VA. Okay. The VA considers MS a potential service-connected disability
Yes.
if you contract it within 6 years after you leave the services. My daughter went through that very long, protracted process, but that is another avenue for veterans if you're not familiar with it.
Yes, and importance there too is if you have a service disability at 1% and then develop MS, you can also have a VA claim which increases your rating and makes it service connected. Absolutely.
We're over here.
Hi. So my question is, if I was denied a few times, and me right now I'm working with the Department of Rehabilitation, and they referred me to some programs, some training and whatnot, and I want to start trying to be more self-sufficient because I'm having difficulty with even cleaning my house and stuff like that. You know, I'm a burden on my own family and in my own life, and I'm wondering if I participate in this program because I know it's a training program, will that affect my being, approved or denied for disability?
Are you currently applying now in the process?
I had already applied. I have a lawyer right now on it.
Okay, so you're currently in the process. My experience, and every lawyer has a different experience, has been that if you complete a rehabilitation program and it helps you, that won't hurt your case. If it can translate into work, it may affect the ability to get benefits. But if you need it for ADLs, for activities of daily living, it should not negatively affect you.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Okay, I have a suggestion for everybody because when I applied for disability, I got the denial, and I had gone down and I resubmitted the paperwork, and I kept calling Social Security. Then they say that they never received it, and I never did it, and I wasn't eligible. And one thing that I realized is always go in person, get it in writing, and have them sign and date it, because I had proof that I did resubmitted it. And where they finally found it after about, 2 years or more, it was sitting on the lady's desk underneath a stack of papers. So may I suggest everybody is get copies, have them signed and dated. This way you have proof to back you up with what you need.
Okay, so I have a comment on that. I think that it's extremely important to have copies of everything, and that happens very often where people have applications from years ago. But I will tell you, I would hesitate to involve anybody physically going to Social Security office. And the reason is when you physically go there, they're taking notes on how you look, what you're wearing, whether your nails are polished, whether you have makeup, and that can be used later on. So I've seen it many times. So my advice is always to send something in the mail certified, or now everything's electronically. You have a receipt, but my advice would be not to go down to Social Security.
Next question here.
My question goes back to what you were saying about the form that they send you in the mail, and I received a form from Social Security Disability. I was originally placed on disability because of my back, and subconsciously I end up with MS. But my question is, you said that you send that form back and you give them your doctor's information, and then they review your doctor's records?
Correct.
I didn't know that. So,
yes, they're reviewing you. They're reviewing to see whether or not you are still disabled.
Okay.
In your case, for example, maybe the back improved, so they're looking for medical improvement, but then you have MS, which is another condition, and you put those together and you can't work. But that's what they're doing. They're asking you for the information to review.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're
Make
welcome.
my way forward.
Okay, on disability, like she was saying, Social Security disability, when I first applied for it, they turned me down. But they don't know how a person feel when they get up in the morning time. And so I had to go back and fill the paperwork out myself and reapply myself. I didn't have the doctor to do it. I did it myself. And then I got approved.
So you got approved at the initial or at the reconsideration
At the
level?
reconsideration,
Okay,
I got.
so-
And then the second question was, I was on Social Security disability, and my kids were young. So when I got off of it, they went back and started to take their tax money from them. They was like, I owe them $300 and some thousand. But I end up going to a disability attorney, and he told me there wasn't no way I was going to be able to pay the money back. I started paying the money back, but when they figured out that I'd had all my paperwork in, because everything was in, and they didn't look at it, because I did work, but I turned all my paperwork in. So once they figured that out, they ended up giving me my money back.
Awesome. That's perfect. Awesome.
Thank you.
You're your best advocate. That's great. I know nobody knows how you feel in the morning. That's why you have to tell your doctors.
Wait, Mike went.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Actually, I was diagnosed with MS about almost 3 years ago, and it took my right eye sight, so I'm blind in my right eye, and my left eye, they just diagnosed me as having low vision.
Okay.
So I don't know what my chances are, and I actually have an appointment next Thursday to fill out the claim with the social
Oh,
worker.
no.
Yeah.
You'll talk to me afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, don't go to Social Security to fill out a claim.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. There and then there.
It's actually him.
I have a question. I was very fortunate that I've been getting the maximum for the last 8 years. But when I turn 65, is it reasonable to expect that I will continue to get the maximum?
It is. Yes.
That was a quick answer. Can you tell them why?
Yes, because what you're receiving is what you would have been receiving at the age of 65. So you're getting your retirement based on your disability. See? Uh-huh.
Hello there. I don't want to be redundant, but what you said earlier.
Yes.
When you go to Social Security office, let's say someone they're watch the way they're groomed, they look at all that.
Yes. Yes.
So then you should go to Social Security office with a hat on and.
Okay. My suggestion has always been you go the way you feel. If you don't feel well, you let them see that. Okay? You're not going for a job interview. You're going because you're not able to work and you're sick. And you want them to see that.
Thank you. I understand that very well.
Okay.
Thank you.
So when I was diagnosed, I went for disability, and at that time, I stayed home for 5 years to have babies. So when they looked at my 10 years, I had a break in service, and at that time, it proved that my husband could financially support me.
Right.
So now all these years have gone by. Is it worth trying to do this again?
No, because you're expired. Your benefits and your amount of money that you could receive, that you worked expires. So the rule of thumb is if you've worked 5 out of the last 10 years. Sometimes people will then start part-time work. They will pay enough money into quarters of coverage, and then they will qualify again, but it won't be any time right now. It won't be any time soon. So this is what happens when you have the support and when you have a diagnosis and you don't apply timely, the benefits do expire. And you're lucky enough to have your family support that you're not destitute and you don't qualify for SSI.
Over here.
So my question has to do with what happens before you start working. If you've been ill and you become trained for an occupation, but then you have a complication that doesn't allow you to work at all, then is the same process followed, or are there special cases under that circumstance?
I'm having a little bit of difficulty understanding. Do you mean that you have been on benefits? And
So this has to do with my my niece, and she is applying for Social Security benefits. I don't think she has a lawyer. She was unable to work because she wasn't trained and because she was ill. She got trained, but then she had complications and still is unable to work. So are the conditions under which she makes the application different in that case? Is anything different about how she behaves from what you've told us so far?
Sure. So you apply for disability, and in the process of it, you try to improve your condition, you try to get better, you try to go back to work, and you're not successful at it. It helps with the credibility. It establishes the fact that you attempted and you tried. They will try to say vocationally, maybe there are other things you can do now because you are trained, but that doesn't mean that you can't win the case. So for example, if I became disabled, they would turn around and say, well, I don't have to go to court. I don't have to certainly argue, but I can talk like this and maybe make a few dollars, and that's a job. Or I could teach, or I could certainly answer phones. And so they're going to try to find another job that you could do, but that's workable. That's what they do every day. That's no surprise. Okay, she's fine.
Hi. If you have disability and you go for the Ticket to Work program with Social Security, how does that affect you if you end up having an exacerbation and you're down again and you can no longer work? Will that affect your benefits?
Okay, so the Ticket to Work is meant so that you can try to see if you're able to go back and work full-time permanently, okay? So these programs are meant to encourage you. With MS, many times when you go back to work, we don't realize that we're actually improving because we're not working. And the stress is lowered, so our condition has stopped progressing. And what happens is many times we stop working, and with MS I see it very, very often. Then we go back and we start I feel better, and we want to do some kind of work. And as important as it is to continue to be mobile and keep your mind going and participate, be very careful with work because it does exacerbate your condition. And that will create the fact that you can't do disability. So the Ticket to Work will help, but if you're able to do it, you don't qualify. So you've got to be really careful with that.
Our last question of the night is right here.
So I had a question. I'm currently working full-time. I've been diagnosed since 2003. I was doing fairly well, but the last few years have been going downhill. So last year, I took 3 months off of work, and I felt so much better. Went back to work, and I feel so much worse again. So I'm planning on quitting in June because I just can't do it. Would you recommend getting a lawyer from the get-go to apply the first time?
Absolutely, absolutely. Not every lawyer takes a case at the initial. So, we take the cases at an initial because I like to make sure that all the records are fluid so that if you go in front of a judge, I know everything that was ever said to Social Security. But I have friends that practice this, and they don't want a case unless it's ready to go to a hearing because they won't get, so it really is individual. I'll be happy to speak to you afterwards. But that's what happens a lot of times with MS. Not working makes you feel so much better and it stops the progression, but you don't want to be idle. So there's that balance between not working and being idle.
Thank you,
Okay.
Lisa.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you, Stu.